It had been an early morning. Katie discovered that sometimes, even though your mind wants to get up, your body wants to stay in bed. Orbie found out that when the shower runs out of hot water, it isn't too much fun to be in it. And they both learned that made-to-order pancakes taste good with jam or maple syrup. Katie was playing at Kira's. Dad asked Orbie to give him a hand with some of the woodworking he was doing. Orbie was delighted and hammered in nails very carefully along a big, long piece of wood. When the work was finished, Dad told Orbie that he really appreciated his help. He added that Orbie was certainly growing up. A few months ago, that would have been too hard for him. Orbie glowed with the praise. He felt like an adult. Dad and Orbie sat on the steps with a cold drink and relaxed. Arthur bopped around the back of the house and asked if Orbie wanted to come and play at the park. Orbie smiled at Arthur, but he was feeling so good about being like an adult that he burbled no. Arthur was surprised, but off he went. Later on, Dad told him that he had some work to do, and he headed into the house. Orbie trotted along beside him, wondering if he could help. Dad told him that it might be a bit boring, but Orbie was very keen, so Dad agreed. In the basement, Dad set out some tools and nails. His toolbox had been used a lot lately, and things were all mixed up. Dad was going to sort them out. Dad asked Orbie to put all the same-sized nails in the right container. Orbie picked them up carefully and began sorting. Just then, Katie and Kira blew down the stairs. Katie asked if they wanted to play a game of statues, but Orbie shook his head. Dad told Orbie that he should go and have fun, but Orbie just kept matching the nails. When the nails were all done, Orbie went upstairs. Mom told him that the sprinkler was on and he could go dance in it if he wanted to. Now, Orbie burbled that sprinklers were for children. And that surprised Mom so much that she leaned back and she just couldn't believe that she'd heard him say that. In the living room, Orbie sat down with one of Dad's books. Although it didn't have pictures in it and Orbie couldn't read the words, he did turn each page after a moment or two. Soon Dad came in and thanked Orbie for finding the book. Orbie smiled. He was sure he could feel an adult growing inside of him. Outside in the backyard, shrieks of laughter followed the friends as they went under the sprinkler. It did look like fun, but when Katie called to him, he told her that he felt he was a bit too old for that. Katie stopped right in her tracks. She stopped so suddenly that Kira, who was halfway through her jump, slammed right into her, and the two friends went flying. And after a moment of quiet, the two friends burst out laughing again. Orbie sighed and walked around to the front of the house. Andy and Yi Ping were having a game of neighborhood hide-and-seek. Orbie knew this because he could hear a bush giggling. Andy poked his head out and told Orbie not to tell Yi Ping. Orbie nodded and moved on. Hide-and-seek seemed so childish now that he was grown up. On his walk, he met little Megan and Greg. They were taking a walk, too. Orbie asked Greg if perhaps he could push the pram. Greg told him he could. So Orbie pushed little Megan along the sidewalk. He pushed very carefully and slowly because that's what grown-ups do. In the park, he saw Tom playing Ape Man with Satya and Dakota. They were swinging from the bars. When they saw Orbie, they hurried over. Tom asked if Orbie was babysitting already. Orbie surprised him by snorkeling soon. He surprised Greg, too, but Greg didn't say anything. Satya asked if she could have a turn, and Orbie told her perhaps another day when she was a bit older. As they rolled away, the three friends looked at each other in confusion. I have to tell you that when they went over the crest of the hill, Orbie did look back at his friends. Ape Man was one of his favorite games. When Orbie came home, it was almost dinner time. Katie was upstairs putting on a dry sweatshirt. He tooted to her that he would like her to wash her hands. As Katie pulled the sweatshirt over her head, she looked back at Orbie, who was halfway down the hall. She didn't really like Orbie telling her what to do. At the dinner table, everybody looked at Orbie. Something was different. He was sitting up and being very polite to Mom and Dad and talking to Katie as if she was a child much younger than he. Katie was starting to feel like pouring her spinach on his head. But luckily, Mom asked in time if something was wrong. Orbie burbled that he was grown up now and he didn't want to be treated like a child any longer. Dad was surprised to hear that, because the very best time in his life was when he was a child. Mom agreed. Orbie didn't understand. Mom told him that when you were a child, you got to have long holidays in the summer where you did nothing but play. You could fit into the tiny places on the climber at the park. And you could still sleep with a teddy bear and go on the special children's rides at the fair. Orbie asked Mom to go back to the teddy bear park. Mom said it wasn't strictly forbidden, but it did look silly for an adult to sleep with a teddy bear. Orbie had to agree. Actually, as much as he wanted to be a grown-up, he thought maybe it would have been fun to be sprinkler dancing. And Katie giggled. It certainly was. And as nice as it was to push little Megan, he really wanted to play Ape Man, too. Maybe he just wasn't ready to grow up yet. Dad told him that he had plenty of time. Childhood was important. He told Orbie that if he could give him adult advice on childhood, it would be to get into it in a big way. Have the most fun and adventure you can, because the whole time you're learning important things that you'll need to know as an adult. Orbie looked at his family. They were right. He didn't need to be an adult for years and years and years. He turned to Katie and asked if she wanted to build a tent castle in the backyard after dinner, and Katie threw her arms around him, which was a lot better than spinach. I hope that if you ever are in a hurry to grow up, that you remember what Dad said, because each adventure will be worth the wait. I just happen to know.
Did you know? No. Did you know? Did you know?
Before zippers were invented, people used to button or tie everything. Before light bulbs, people used candles and oil lamps. And before cars, people used to get around on horses. Can you imagine what they used before washing machines?